"Don't be so selfish," my father said after draining my college fund for my sister's influencer party. I choked back tears, not of sadness, but of sudden clarity. He was right. It was time to be selfish by investing every part of myself into my own success. My name is Arya, and this is the moment my father, Jonathan Miller, realized the daughter he abandoned in a hospital had just become his new boss. The air in the boardroom was thick with the scent of expensive coffee and quiet ambition, but all I could feel was the ice-cold satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed. From the stage, under the sterile glow of the projector, I watched his face. The confident smirk he wore just moments before, while complaining to a colleague about the new leadership, had melted away. It was replaced by a mask of pale, slack-jawed disbelief. His eyes, wide and unblinking, were locked on mine, searching for an answer he already knew. He didn't see the brilliant coder, the scholarship winner, or the girl who just wanted his approval. He saw a ghost. This wasn't just a corporate takeover. It was the final chapter in one of those unbelievable family revenge stories you see in movies. Only this one was mine. It was the culmination of years of being treated as an afterthought, an inconvenience whose life was less valuable than my sister's next Instagram post. They thought they had dismissed me, that I would quietly fade away after their ultimate betrayal. They were wrong. To understand how I ended up here, holding the future of my father's 30-year career in the palm of my hand, you need to understand how they first tried to take my own future from me. But before we dive into that, I want to know who's out there listening with me tonight. If you've ever felt like the forgotten one in your family, the one whose achievements were always expected but never truly celebrated, just type the city you're watching from in the comments. Let's see how far this silent strength of ours really reaches. That look on his face. It wasn't just shock. It was the shattering of a reality he had carefully constructed for decades. A reality where I was the dependable, quiet, and ultimately disposable daughter, and my sister, Skylar, was the star, the one worth every sacrifice. He was looking at the consequence of a choice he made long ago, a choice to bet on the wrong daughter. But this isn't just a story about a corporate power play. It's about how the deepest betrayals can forge the strongest armor. It's about how being underestimated is the ultimate secret weapon. My journey from that hospital bed to this boardroom was fueled by one simple, cold truth. They saw my independence not as a strength, but as an excuse to neglect me. They saw my ambition not as something to nurture, but as a threat to the fragile ecosystem they built around my sister. It's a lonely place to be, when the people who are supposed to be your biggest cheerleaders are secretly hoping you don't shine too brightly. I spent years trying to understand that dynamic, wondering if I was the problem. Now I know I wasn't the problem, my potential was. And I have a feeling I'm not the only one who knows what that's like. Before I take you back to the beginning, back to the sun-drenched streets of Austin where this all started, let me know. Were you ever the scapegoat too? Type fixer in the comments if you were always the one holding things together, or star if you are the golden child. I want to see the balance. And if you believe your own light should never be dimmed for someone else's comfort, subscribe. This space is for you. Now, let me show you how it all began. Our family lived in a beautiful 2-story house in a suburb of Austin, Texas, the kind of place where ambition hangs in the air like the scent of barbecue. For me, Austin was the promised land. It was home to the University of Texas, where I had earned a full academic scholarship to their prestigious computer science program. My dream was to build something, to innovate. I spent my high school years coding in my room, working a part-time job at a local tech startup, and saving every dollar I could. My path was clear, paved with hard work and sleepless nights. My sister Skylar's path was paved with my parents' money. While I was debugging code, she was curating her Instagram feed. While I was saving for textbooks, she was unboxing designer clothes gifted by our parents for brand collaborations that never seemed to materialize. To the outside world, my parents, Jonathan and Catherine, were the picture of support for both their daughters. At family gatherings, my father would boast about my 4.0 GPA and my scholarship. "Arya's got the brains," he'd say, beaming with pride. "She's our little genius." But behind closed doors, that pride was just a performance. The praise was hollow. I discovered the truth one evening when I checked my savings account, the one I had meticulously built since I was 15. Thousands of dollars were missing. When I confronted them, my mother, Catherine, didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She explained, calmly, that they had borrowed the money to fund Skylar's trip to a social media summit in Los Angeles. "Honey," she said, "Skylar's fame is an investment in our family's brand. Your success is a given. You'll always find a way. She needs this." That was the moment I understood. My hard work wasn't a source of pride for them. It was a resource to be exploited for Skylar's fantasy. That borrowed money was just the beginning. The real betrayal, the one that severed the last thread of hope I had for them, came a few months later. Skylar decided she needed to officially launch her brand. This wasn't just a small get-together, it was a full-blown, catered event at one of Austin's most expensive rooftop venues, complete with a professional photographer, a DJ, and gift bags that cost more than my monthly food budget. To top it off, she was planning a 2-week content creation trip to Bali immediately after. I knew they couldn't afford it, but I foolishly assumed it wasn't my problem. I was wrong. It became my problem when I logged into my college fund account, an account I had built with 4 years of working 40-hour weeks every summer, tutoring on weekends, and living on instant noodles. It was supposed to be my safety net, the money that would ensure I could graduate debt-free. But it was gone. Every single cent. Over $20,000 vanished. When I confronted my father, his response wasn't apologetic. It was dismissive. He looked at me, not with guilt, but with a strange sort of pity, as if I was the one who didn't understand. "Aria," he said, his voice calm, "Skylar's career is an investment in our family's brand. This party will get her noticed. The Bali trip will give her content for months. You're smart, you'll figure it out. You always do. Don't be so selfish." Selfish. That one word echoed in my ears. My dream, my future, my hard work all dismissed as selfishness. They hadn't just taken my money, they had taken my future and handed it to my sister on a silver platter to fund a fantasy. It's a terrible feeling when you realize the people who should be building you up are the ones tearing your foundation down. If you've ever had to choose between your own dream and your family's demands, hit that like button. You're not alone in that fight. Being forced to attend Skylar's brand launch party felt like a special kind of torture. I had spent the day before it happened locked in my room, trying to salvage my college plans, my mind a chaotic storm of anger and despair. But my attendance was non-negotiable. "You have to be there to support your sister, Aria," my mother had insisted. "It's important for the family's image." The family's image. It was always about the image. I went, armed with my EpiPen and a heavy heart. I have a severe nut allergy, a fact my family has known my entire life. It's not a mild inconvenience, it's a life-threatening condition. My mother, Catherine, assured me she had personally overseen the menu with the caterers. "Everything is perfectly safe, honey." I made sure of it. I wanted to believe her. I desperately wanted just one evening where I didn't feel like a burden. The party was as vapid as I expected, a sea of influencers taking selfies, air kissing, and talking loudly about their engagement rates. I tried to eat a small appetizer, a beautifully arranged crostini. It looked harmless. But within minutes, the familiar, terrifying tightness began in my throat. My skin started to itch violently. I stumbled towards my mother, gasping. "The food. Nuts." She looked annoyed, not scared. "Don't be dramatic, Aria. It's probably just anxiety." But it wasn't. I later found out the caterer had explicitly warned them about potential cross-contamination with the pesto sauce. Skylar and Catherine had ignored the warning. Why? Because separating the dishes or putting up a warning sign would have ruined the aesthetic of the food table. They chose a perfect Instagram photo over my life. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't just their second choice. I was disposable. The ride to the hospital was a blur of sirens and the frantic voice of a paramedic. I remember the doctor's grave face in the emergency room, the flurry of activity as they pumped epinephrine and steroids into my system to stop my body from shutting down. My last coherent thought before the darkness took over was a desperate, primal wish for my mom and dad. Even after everything, some childish part of me believed that in a true life or death moment, they would come. They never did. I learned later that the ICU doctor called my father, Jonathan, personally. The doctor's words were clear and urgent. Your daughter is in critical condition. Her reaction is severe. We strongly advise you to come immediately. I can almost hear my father's sigh of annoyance on the other end of the line. His reply, as relayed to me by a compassionate nurse, was a dagger to my heart. We can't possibly leave right now, he had said, his voice impatient. This is Skylar's big night. The party is in full swing. Arya will be fine. She's always been the strong one. I woke up hours later, alone in the sterile silence of the ICU, the only sound the steady beep of my heart monitor. The loneliness was a physical weight, heavier than any medical equipment. But then, a figure appeared in the doorway. It was Ethan Vance, a well-known venture capitalist I had met once, briefly, at a university tech conference where I had presented a small project. He had heard what happened from a mutual acquaintance who was at the party. He saw my parents' indifference, and he came. He didn't know me well, but he sat with me all night, becoming my emergency contact, talking to the doctors, and just being a quiet, reassuring presence. In my darkest hour, a near stranger showed me more compassion than my own family ever had. Laying in that hospital bed, with the steady, rhythmic beeping of the machines as my only companion, something inside me shifted. The desperate hope I had clung to for years, the hope that one day they would finally see me crumbled into dust. It was replaced by a cold, hard clarity. The love I was seeking was a currency they were unwilling to spend on me. So I decided to stop being a charity case and become my own investor. I didn't waste ink on a handwritten letter filled with tear-stained pleas. That was the old Arya. The new Arya dealt in efficiency and finality. I asked Ethan to pass me my laptop. My fingers, though still weak, moved with a newfound purpose across the keyboard. I opened a new email, addressed it to both my parents, and typed a subject line that was both a summary and a prophecy. Your final investment. The body of the email was short, sharp, and devoid of emotion. It was a business declaration. You chose not to invest in me, I wrote. You took my life savings and my future to fund a fleeting fantasy. You left me to die for the sake of a party. I will not make that mistake. From this moment on, I will invest in myself. And one day, you will have to face the returns on the investment you missed. I hit send. Then, with a chilling sense of liberation, I deleted their numbers from my phone. I blocked them on every platform. This wasn't a daughter's heartbroken goodbye. It was a CEO's final memo. It was a declaration of war. That single click was the hardest and most freeing decision of my life. Tell me in the comments, what's the one decision you made that changed everything for you? Just a word or a year. I want to know when your new life began. Leaving that hospital wasn't just a discharge, it was a rebirth. The first thing I did was officially withdraw from the University of Texas. It wasn't an act of defeat, it was a strategic pivot. Why would I pay for a degree when I could build an empire? I moved out of my shared student housing and into a tiny shoebox apartment in a less glamorous part of Austin. The rent was cheap, and it had fast internet. That was all I needed. My command center was established. Ethan Vance was true to his word. He saw the fire in my eyes, the raw, untapped potential that my own family had dismissed. He didn't just offer sympathy, he offered a lifeline. He provided the seed funding, a modest $50,000, not as a handout, but as his first official investment in me. I'm betting on the jockey, not just the horse, Arya, he told me. I wouldn't let him down. Thus began the montage of my life. My world shrank to the four walls of that apartment. Days and nights blurred into a single, continuous loop fueled by cheap coffee and sheer will. My companions were a glowing laptop screen, a whiteboard covered in complex logistical algorithms, and the relentless clicking of my keyboard. I was building Nexus Logistics, an application designed to revolutionize supply chain management using predictive AI. There were moments of crippling doubt, of staring at a line of broken code at 3 a.m., feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. But then I would remember my father's dismissive tone, my mother's cold indifference, and the anger would morph into fuel. Within 6 months, I had a working prototype. Within a year, I had my first major client. Nexus Logistics wasn't just an app anymore. It was a rapidly growing force, and I was just getting started. 2 years passed. In the fast-paced world of Austin's tech scene, 2 years is a lifetime. For Nexus Logistics, it was an era of explosive growth. My shoebox apartment had been upgraded to a sleek, glass-walled office downtown overlooking the city. My team had grown from 1 to 50. We weren't just a startup anymore, we were a recognized disruptor, and my name, Aria Miller, was beginning to be whispered in the same circles as the tech titans I once admired from afar. Meanwhile, in the fickle world of social media, 2 years is an eternity. Skylar's star, which had once burned so brightly on my parents' dime, had spectacularly flamed out. The influencer bubble had popped. Tastes changed. Her followers grew tired of the endless sponsored posts for products she clearly never used. The brands, once eager to associate with her, pulled their contracts when they saw her engagement numbers plummet. The Bali photos were old news. The lavish lifestyle she flaunted had left her with a mountain of credit card debt, and nothing to show for it but a feed full of fading memories. One Tuesday afternoon, as I was reviewing our quarterly revenue projections, a chart showing a beautiful, steep upward curve, my phone buzzed. It was a message from a number I didn't have saved, but I recognized the profile picture instantly. It was Skylar. The message was long, a rambling, self-pitying monologue about how unfair the world was, how her dreams were crushed, and it ended with the line I knew was coming. Aria, I know we haven't talked, but I'm in a really bad spot. I just need a little loan to get back on my feet. Like, maybe 50,000? For family. I read the message, my face betraying no emotion. On my screen, her desperate plea for a bailout sat right next to a multi-million-dollar projection. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity. I felt nothing. I swiped the notification away and turned back to my work. It's a strange moment, isn't it? When you see the consequences of someone else's choices play out exactly as you knew they would. Have you ever had that moment of silent vindication? Just type "watched" in the comments if you know that feeling. No judgment here, just truth. My silence was a weapon they never saw coming. While Skylar was busy spiraling, I was preparing for my endgame. Nexus Logistics had officially reached unicorn status, a billion-dollar valuation that put us on the map in a major way. We had capital, influence, and an insatiable appetite for growth. It was during a late-night strategy session with Ethan that the perfect opportunity presented itself, gift-wrapped by fate. Ethan's team had flagged a mid-sized, regional logistics company for a potential acquisition. The company, Miller Freight, was struggling. They were old school, failing to adapt to new technology, and bleeding clients. Their balance sheets were a mess, making them a prime target for a hostile takeover. The name, of course, was no coincidence. It was the company my father, Jonathan Miller, had poured his entire 30-year career into. He wasn't the owner, but he was a senior vice president, the second in command. It was his entire identity, the source of all his pride. A younger Aria might have hesitated, might have felt a pang of guilt. But that Aria was gone, left behind in a cold hospital room. I saw the strategic value, the perfect synergy. Acquiring them would absorb their client list and infrastructure, accelerating our own expansion by years. But more than that, it was poetry. It was the ultimate checkmate in a game they had started. Ethan looked at me, a question in his eyes, wondering if this was too personal. I met his gaze, my expression unreadable. "Prepare the offer," I said, my voice steady and cold. "We move on this immediately. No mercy." The hunt had begun. And so, we arrived back where we started. The company-wide town hall meeting. The room buzzed with nervous energy. The employees of Miller Freight, now a subsidiary of Nexus Logistics, were gathered to meet their new leadership. I stood in the wings of the stage, watching my father, Jonathan. He was in his element, holding court with a group of his senior colleagues. I could read his lips as he complained, another soulless tech giant buying us out. They probably sent some kid in a hoodie who's never seen the inside of a real warehouse. His friends nodded in agreement, sharing in his disdain. The irony was so thick, I could almost taste it. Then, the current CEO announced my name. "Please join me in welcoming the new head of this division, the founder and CEO of Nexus Logistics, Miss Aria Miller." I walked out onto the stage. A single spotlight found me. The murmuring in the room stopped instantly. I saw hundreds of faces turn towards me, but my eyes were fixed on only one. I watched the color drain from my father's face. The smug confidence evaporated, replaced by a raw, visceral shock. His mouth hung slightly open. The colleagues he had just been complaining to slowly turned to look at him, their expressions a mixture of confusion and dawning realization. He was no longer Jonathan Miller, the respected VP. He was just the father of the woman who now owned his entire world. I stepped up to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and let the silence hang in the air for a moment longer, savoring it. I scanned the crowd, my gaze finally resting on him. "Good morning," I began, my voice clear and amplified throughout the auditorium. "My name is Aria Miller, and I am very much looking forward to bringing some new family values to this company. Starting with this one. We never, ever abandon our most valuable assets." The aftermath was a quiet earthquake, reshaping our family's landscape forever. My father, Jonathan, didn't quit. His pride wouldn't let him. So now, every single day, the senior vice president who once dismissed my dreams has to walk into my office, stand before my desk, and report his weekly progress to the daughter he left for dead. I don't humiliate him. I don't raise my voice. I am professional, courteous, and cold as ice. I make him witness the empire he refused to invest in, and that, I've learned, is a far more profound revenge than simply firing him. Skylar, stripped of her financial safety net, had to face the harsh reality of a world that doesn't run on likes and sponsored posts. She works as a barista now. It's an honest job, and for the first time in her life, she is earning her own way. We don't talk. The chasm between us is too wide, filled with the ghosts of choices she made. But the most surprising change happened within me. The fire of revenge that drove me for so long has cooled, leaving behind not emptiness, but a serene sense of peace. The ultimate satisfaction wasn't seeing them fall, it was realizing I had risen so high that their opinions no longer mattered. I didn't build Nexus Logistics to punish them. I built it to save myself. So, here's the lesson I paid for with my life. Do not wait for anyone to validate your worth. Become your own biggest investor. The sweetest revenge isn't their destruction. It's building an empire so magnificent they can never hope to touch it. And remember, you do this for you, not for them. Your success is the only answer you'll ever need. If my story has resonated with you, if you believe in the power of writing your own ending, then subscribe and join this community. The world may not always see your fight, but we do. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that their worth is non-negotiable. Thank you for witnessing my journey. Now, go build your own.